What we're going to be looking at today is just a little introduction to how to strum, some basic ideas about how to get that going. Now, I've always thought the easiest way of thinking of this is imagining yourself a little bit like a drummer, effectively. It's not a bad analogy, actually, as we go forward and make our strumming more subtle, because there are a lot of parallels with drumming, I think. But the first thing you really need to do as a drummer, apart from learning how to hit the drum cleanly, which is remarkably awkward if you ever tried it, is to sound like a drum machine. In other words, to play a consistent pattern and stay in time and in tempo. So let's say we're in 4/4, and now those of you who've seen the previous videos on time signatures and so forth will understand what I'm talking about. If you don't, by all means go back and have a look at those videos. And also there's some interesting stuff about rhythms and stuff which I think will be very helpful if you haven't already seen it, or it's stuff you don't already know about. However, to get down to it, okay, so we're in 4/4, well, beats are grouped in fours. And the most basic thing you can do with that is to play 4 strums, isn't it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so that's pretty easy. But again, it's worth just trying that with a couple of songs you might want to play to keep that strumming and that tempo and that feel consistent. Now, another little thing about strumming, and a lot of people miss out on this, I think, but if you hit a guitar, there's a kind of a sweet spot where you're getting the most. You don't want to go, bashing the life out of it, or, tickling it so you can't hear what's going on. So try and get just a nice sweet spot. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to play that again, and this time I'm going to double up on one of the beats. Okay, so here's a little graphic of that. Okay, so now we're going to double up on a couple of the beats. Okay. Again, doubling up this time on 3 of the beats. So that starts to give us a bit more animation, if you will, in the guitar part. And obviously as you go along, you're going to get used to playing those patterns, and you may be thinking about variations and little alterations that you can do to those to make them sound more interesting. But mostly when people start playing strumming patterns, it's as if the bar is as full of rhythms as it possibly could be. And then as you get used to that rhythm, it's as if the bar expands and you start hearing gaps where you could put stuff in. So this brings us to the next part of thinking about strumming, and it takes us back to the idea of being a drummer. Now, we could have the bass drum and the snare of a pattern going, but then we might also have a couple of little things going on the hi-hat, or maybe some of the cymbals. Okay, Okay, so we can be subtle about strumming. We don't have to be just like, we're cleaning a window or something. It's always possible to be creative. Now, yet another way of doing that is to split up the bass notes and the strums. So this sort of idea. And you'll notice there when I'm playing the bass note of the chord. I'm not playing the whole chord after that. Otherwise, it's going to upset the bass line, which we've now put in action. So so another thing we can do is to separate the bass notes and the strums, and this gives us a little bit more colour, but it's also very useful from a chord change point of view. So let's just have a little think about what I just said there. Suppose you did this. Okay, now I want to change to a D. So the first thing I've got to do when I get to the D, if I'm picking and strumming, is the bass note, isn't it? So I don't actually need the D chord until the second beat in the bar. Now, if you consider most chord changes are theoretically instantaneous, then having a whole beat is all day, isn't it? You see how that works. Now there's another little thing there which is dynamics. You don't just want to sound like a robot when you're playing. So I'm going to play that again, and I want you to listen to the variations in volume. I'm going to bring in another couple of chords here to give it a little bit more colour and a little bit more shape. But it's actually the volume as much as anything else I want you to think about here. Okay, so that puts a lot more colour into the sequence. And you notice on one of those chords there I was messing around. So that's another little thing you can put in, a little bit of colour to add to the part that you're playing. Now, in amongst all of this, it's also very important to think about your down and your upstrokes. By and large, you tend to play your downstrokes on the beats and your upstrokes off them, but that isn't always the case. So if something sounds kind of like it's back to front and you're sort of going, or something like that, you play it, that doesn't sound right. Still doesn't sound right. What about? Okay, so just having to think about that. I mean, here's another example. Suppose I did this. But that kind of sounds like I'm twitching and playing a chord at the same time. If I do this. Okay, so as you'll gather from that, the strum starts before the beat. There's our beat, so that's where the downstroke is. Now, as with everything guitar-wise, it's always worth, trying different things, experimenting, just changing stuff up, trying different picks, different approaches, different strings even, you get different sounds. But first things first, try and get that beat nailed down. Once you feel you're comfortable with that, then start moving outside of it. Maybe think about putting in some separate bass notes and so forth. Anyway, hope that's helpful. Any questions at all, please get in touch. And thanks very much for watching. Please subscribe. Bye for now.